Nari stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the massive space station floating in front of her. Galactic Academy Station Omega-7 was huge, much bigger than anything she had ever seen back home on New Sol Prime. The station spun slowly in space and through the large windows. She could see the giant orange planet Kepler-4 for to be turning below them. "Welcome to your new home, human," said the transport pilot. It was a Drakmor, with gray skin like stone and yellow eyes that glowed in the dim light. "Try not to get eaten on your first day." Nari picked up her small bag and walked toward the docking tube. She was nervous, but she did not show it on her face. Her brother Jimin had taught her to never show fear, especially around aliens who might see it as weakness. The station was full of noise and strange smells. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked through the corridors. Some were tall as trees, others had multiple arms, and a few glowed with their own light. Nari felt very small next to them. It's only 5 feet and 2 inches tall. She was tiny compared to most galactic species. A mechanical voice spoke from speakers in the walls. "New students report to Orientation Hall 7. New students report to Orientation Hall 7. Nari followed the signs through twisting corridors. Other new students walked beside her, but none of them talked to her. A group of crystal beings that looked like walking diamonds whispered to each other in musical tones. A pack of wolf-like creatures with blue fur kept their distance from everyone else. Giant insect beings clicked their mandibles as they walked. Orientation Hall 7 was enormous. Hundreds of students sat in curved rows of seats that went up to the ceiling. Nari found an empty seat near the back and sat down quietly. The aliens around her were at least twice her size. "Look at that," whispered a voice behind her. "They actually sent a human." "I heard humans are weak," said another voice. "Dane, they come from a soft world where nothing dangerous lives." "Why would they waste a spot on something so fragile?" asked a third voice. Nari pretended not to hear them, but her hands tightened into small fists. She stared straight ahead at the stage where a tall Drakmor officer was beginning to speak. "Welcome, students, to Galactic Academy Station Omega-7, the officer said. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stone. "I am Commander Vex-High. You are here because you represent the finest warriors, thinkers, and leaders your species can produce." The commander's yellow eyes scanned the crowd. "Each of you has proven yourself worthy through combat, intelligence, or leadership trials. Each of you has earned your place here." His gaze stopped on Nari for a moment. "Some of you more than others." Several students turned to look at her. Nari felt her cheeks get warm, but she kept looking forward. "You will be divided into study groups based on your abilities," Commander Vex-High continued. "Combat specialists will train together. Science researchers will work in laboratories. Diplomatic students will study galactic law and trade." A hologram appeared above the stage, showing different class schedules. Nari searched for her name and found it under Advanced Combat Theory. Section A. The aliens sitting near her saw it too. "Advanced Combat Theory," laughed one of them. It was a massive creature that looked like a cross between a tiger and a bear, with black stripes and silver claws. "They put the human in combat class. This has to be a mistake," said another student. "This one had blue scales and fins like a shark. Humans don't fight. They just run away and hide." The tiger bear creature stood up. He was over 8 feet tall, with muscles that bulged under his striped fur. "I am Kethver of the Zentarian Empire," he announced loudly. "My people have conquered 12 star systems through strength and honor in battle." Other students turned to listen. Kethver pointed one of his massive claws at Nari. "I challenge the soft human to prove she belongs in combat class," he said. "If she cannot, she should return to whatever weak world spawned her." "Kethver speaks truth," said a crystal being that sparkled like a diamond. "I am Quillix of the Vorthok Collective. My species has calculated that humans have no evolutionary advantages for warfare. They are too small, too slow, and too weak." "Duh." "Four-armed Maltese agree," added another alien with gray skin and 4 muscular arms. "Humans have no place among warriors." More and more students began to agree. Soon half the hall was looking at Nari and talking about how humans did not belong at the academy. Nari sat perfectly still during all of this. She did not argue or defend herself. She just watched and listened. Her dark eyes moved from face to face, studying each alien that spoke against her. She noticed how Kethver showed his teeth when he was angry. She saw how Quillix's crystal body changed color when he felt superior to others. She watched how the four-armed Maltese flexed all his arms to show his strength. "I make a wager," Kethver announced. "Soft human will not last 1 week in advanced combat theory. She will quit and run home to her safe little world." "What do you bet?" asked Quillix. 100 galactic credits says she quits before 7 days pass, Kethver said. "I accept that bet," said the four-armed Maltese. "But I say she quits in 3 days. 2 days, said another student. Soon dozens of aliens were betting on how quickly Nari would give up and leave the academy. They talked about her like she was not even there. Through all of this, Nari remained quiet. She did not defend herself or make threats. She just sat and observed. In her mind, she was thinking about what her brother Jimin had taught her about different fighting styles. He had served in the human colonial marines and fought against pirates and hostile aliens across the galaxy. Nadi, he had told her before. She left for the academy, remembered that the loudest fighters are often the weakest. The ones who threaten and boast usually have something to hide. Real predators are quiet. They watch. They learn. They wait for the right moment. The orientation ended with students receiving their class schedules and room assignments. Nari was assigned to dormitory block C, room 847. As she walked through the corridors with her small bag, groups of alien students followed her, still making jokes and comments. "Look how small she is," one said. "I could step on her by accident." "My little sister back home is bigger than that human," said another. "She probably cries when someone speaks too loudly," laughed a third. Nari found her room and entered the access code. The door slid open to reveal a small but clean space with a bed, desk, and storage unit. She set her bag down and sat on the bed. From her bag, she pulled out a small communication device and activated it. After a few moments, her brother's face appeared on the screen. Nari Jimin smiled. "How was your first day at the academy?" "Interesting," she said quietly. "The other students think humans are weak." Jimin's smile did not change, but his eyes became more serious. "And what do you think?" "I think they are about to learn something new," Nari replied. Her brother nodded.
Nice.
"Remember what I taught you about hunting, little sister? The prey never sees the predator coming until it is too late." After ending the call, Nari unpacked her few belongings. Tomorrow would be her first day of advanced combat theory. She was looking forward to it. Outside her small window, the stars shone cold and bright in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, the world that had shaped humanity into what they really were. Soon, the galaxy would understand why Earth was called a death world, but not because of the monsters that lived there, because of the monsters it had created. Nari woke up early on her first day of classes. The station's artificial sun was just beginning to brighten through her small window. She put on her academy uniform, a simple gray jumpsuit that looked even smaller next to the oversized uniforms. Designed for larger alien species, the cafeteria was huge and loud. Hundreds of alien students sat at long tables eating foods that Nari did not recognize. Some meals were still moving. Others glowed with strange colors. The smell was overwhelming, like a mix of flowers, metal, and something that had been dead. For too long, Nari found the human food section in a far corner. It was tiny compared to the other species areas. She took some plain bread, protein paste, and water, then looked for a place to sit. Every table was full of aliens who looked up at her with curious or hostile eyes. Finally, she found an empty table in the back corner and sat alone. "Human is eating by herself," said a voice nearby. "Even her own kind doesn't want to be near her." "I heard humans eat the flesh of other creatures," whispered another voice. "How disgusting." "My species only eats pure energy," said a glowing alien proudly. "We are evolved beyond such primitive needs." Nari ate her simple meal and listened to everything around her. She was learning about the different species without even trying. The crystal beings called Vorthax only ate minerals. The wolf-like Drakmor preferred raw meat. The four-armed Maltese ate plants that grew on their home world. After breakfast, she walked to advanced combat theory class. The training room was enormous, with high ceilings and thick walls. Weapons of every shape and size hung on the walls. Training dummies stood in rows, already showing damage from previous classes. Other students were already there. Kethfer, the giant tiger bear creature, was practicing with a weapon that looked like a hammer mixed with an axe. Each swing made the air whistle. Quillix, the crystal being, was moving through precise combat forms that looked like a deadly dance. The four-armed Maltese was lifting weights that would crush a normal human. "Attention," students called, a deep voice. A Drakmor instructor entered the room. He was even bigger than Commander Vexhai, with scars covering his gray skin, and one missing eye. "I am Instructor Veltar. I have trained warriors for 40 years. I have seen species rise and fall based on their combat abilities." His one good eye swept across the room and stopped on Nari. "Some of you do not belong here. Combat is not for the weak or the soft. It is for predators." Several students looked at Nari and whispered to each other. "We will begin with basic combat assessment," Instructor Veltar announced. "Each student will demonstrate their natural fighting abilities. Kethfer, you first." The massive Zentarian stepped forward. He picked up a training weapon that was twice as long as Nari was tall. With a roar that shook the room, he attacked a combat dummy. His claws and weapon moved so fast they were just a blur. In seconds, the dummy was destroyed completely.
Excellent.
Instructor Veltar said, "Zentarians are natural apex predators. Raw power combined with killer instinct."
X was Quillix.
The crystal being did not use weapons. Instead, his diamond-hard body became the weapon. He struck the dummy with precise attacks that shattered pieces off with each hit. His movements were perfect, calculated, with no wasted energy. "Fight with mathematical precision," the instructor explained. "Every strike is planned for maximum efficiency." The four-armed Maltese went next. He used all four arms with different weapons at the same time. His attack was like watching for fighters working as one. The training dummy did not stand a chance. One by one, each alien student showed their combat skills. Some used energy weapons, others fought with tooth and claw. A few used mental powers to crush their targets. All of them were impressive and deadly. Human Instructor Veltar called, "Your turn." Nari walked to the center of the room. Every alien student stopped what they were doing to watch. She looked very small next to the destroyed training dummies around her. "Choose your weapon," the instructor said, pointing to the wall. Of weapons. Nari looked at the weapons for a long moment. Swords that were taller than she was. Hammers she could not even lift. Energy guns designed for creatures with much larger hands. Finally, she picked up a simple metal rod about as long as her arm. "That is not even a real weapon," laughed Kethfer. "It's just a practice stick." "Maybe she thinks she can tickle the enemy to death," said another student. Nari ignored the laughter. She walked up to a fresh training dummy and stood in front of it. The dummy was 3 times her size and made of materials that could withstand massive attacks. For a moment, Nari just stood there. She did not roar or threaten. She did not show off her muscles or speed. She just looked at the dummy like she was thinking about something. Then she moved, but not like the other students expected. She did not attack with wild fury or calculated precision. Instead, she hit the dummy once in what looked like a random spot, then she hit it again in a different place. Then again, each hit was not very strong. Each hit alone would not hurt anything. But Nari kept hitting. She moved around the dummy, striking it in different places with the metal rod. Her movements were steady and patient. "What is she doing?" whispered Quillix. "Those strikes are too weak to damage anything." "She is wasting time," said Kethfer. "This is embarrassing to watch." But Instructor Veltar was watching more carefully. His single eye followed Nari's movements with growing interest. After 2 minutes of what looked like random hitting, something strange happened. The training dummy began to shake. Then it began to crack. The cracks spread from each spot where Nari had hit it. Suddenly, the entire dummy fell apart. It collapsed into pieces like it had been hit by a massive explosion. But Nari had never struck it hard enough to break anything. The room became completely silent. "How did she do that?" asked a student in a shaky voice. Instructor Veltar walked over to examine the broken dummy. She found the weak points, he said slowly. Each strike hit a structural weakness. Alone they did nothing. Together, they destroyed the entire target. That is impossible, said Quillix. My species calculated the exact force needed to destroy these dummies. She did not use enough power. Your species calculated wrong, Instructor Veltar replied. Power is not always the answer. Sometimes patience and intelligence work better. The other students looked at Nari with confusion and a little bit of fear. This was not what they expected from a weak human. Beginner's luck, Kethver declared, but his voice was not as confident as before. Let us see her try real combat against a living opponent. Very well, Instructor, Veltar said. Choose a sparring partner. Without hesitation, Nari pointed at Kethver. Him, the massive Zentarian, smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Perfect. This will be over in seconds. They moved to the sparring circle. Kethver was more than 3 times Nara's size. His claws could cut through metal. His muscles bulged under his striped fur. Begin, Instructor Veltar called. Kethver charged forward with a roar that echoed through the room. His massive claws reached for Nari, like he was going to grab her, throw her across the room. But Nari was not there anymore. She had moved to the side at the last second. Kethver's charge carried him past her and into the wall behind where she had been standing. He hit the wall with a loud crash. Stand still and fight, he roared, turning around. He charged again. Again. Nari was not where he expected her to be. This time she was behind him. As he turned to face her, she was already moving to his side. For 5 minutes, Kethver chased Nari around the sparring circle. He was faster and stronger, but he could never catch her. Every time he thought he had her cornered, she slipped away. Like smoke. Finally, Kethver stopped in the center of the circle. He was breathing heavily. Sweat dripped from his striped fur. Fight me properly, he gasped. Stop running away like a coward. Nari stopped moving and looked at him. I'm fighting, she said quietly. You are just losing. I have not lost anything, Kethver snarled. You've not even touched me. That is correct, Nari agreed. But you are exhausted, and I am not. In a real fight, that means you are dead. The room was quiet, except for Kethver's heavy breathing. All the other students stared at the massive warrior who looked ready to collapse. Time called Instructor Veltar. Match over. But I was not defeated, Kethver protested. You could barely stand, the instructor replied. In real combat, your enemy would finish you now, while you cannot defend yourself. The human wins. The alien students whispered among themselves in shock. Some of them looked at Nari with new respect. Others seemed confused and angry. That evening, Nari returned to her small room and called her brother again. How was your second day? Jimin asked. Educational. Nari replied. They are starting to notice that humans might be different than they thought. Good, her brother said. But be careful, little sister. Wounded pride can be dangerous. Some of them will want to prove you just got lucky. Let them try, Nari said with a small smile. I am still learning about them. Each day, I understand their weaknesses better. After ending the call, Nari lay on her bed and thought about the day. The aliens at the academy were strong and fast and smart, but they all had one weakness that they did not even know about. They thought combat was about winning quickly. Humans knew that combat was about surviving longest. Soon, they would learn the difference. 3 days after the sparring match, Nari was eating lunch alone in the cafeteria when the lights suddenly turned red. A loud alarm sound filled the air. Emergency speakers crackled to life throughout the station. Attention all students and staff. Commander Vexai's voice echoed through the halls. You have a code black emergency. Prison transport ship has crashed into docking bay 12. Dangerous prisoners have escaped into the station. All personnel must report to secure areas immediately. This is not a drill. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Alien students ran in all directions, some screaming in languages Nari did not understand. Tables were knocked over as creatures pushed past each other to reach the exits. Nari stayed in her seat and finished her meal. She watched the panic around her with calm eyes. Her brother had taught her that panic was the enemy of survival. Clear thinking was more important than fast running. All students report to dormitory block A. The announcement continued. Security barriers are being activated. Remain calm and follow emergency procedures. Nari stood up and walked toward the dormitory blocks, but she did not hurry. Along the way, she noticed security guards running through the corridors with heavy weapons. Their faces showed fear. If the guards were scared, these prisoners must be very dangerous. In dormitory block A, hundreds of students were crowded into a large common area. The mood was tense. Some students whispered to each other about what kind of prisoners could make the academy so frightened. I heard they are Nethisians, said a crystal being in a shaking voice. Death-world predators from the outer rim. It's impossible, said another student. Nethisians are kept in maximum security prisons. They would never transport them near an academy. Then why are the guards so scared? Asked the third voice. Kethfer was standing near the center of the room with other large predator species. Whatever these prisoners are, they will not be a match for us, he declared loudly. We are the strongest species in the galaxy. The security systems will stop them, added Quillix. The academy has the best defenses available, as if responding. To his words, the lights flickered and went out. Emergency lighting turned on, casting red shadows across the room. Then they heard it, a sound that made every alien in the room go silent. It was a roar, but not like any animal sound. It was the sound of something that enjoyed killing, something that was hungry for prey. The sound came from the ventilation system above their heads. They are in the air ducts, whispered a student. How is that possible? Asked another. The ducts are too small for most species, not for Nethisians, said a guard who had just entered. The room, they can squeeze through spaces half their normal size. They are hunting us right now. Several students began to panic again. Some tried to run for the exits, but the security doors had locked automatically. They were trapped. Quiet, shouted the guard. Everyone stay together. Do not make noise. Nethisians hunt by sound and smell. If we stay silent and still, they might pass us by. The room fell silent except for the quiet breathing of hundreds of frightened students. Above them, they could hear scratching sounds moving through the ducts. Something was crawling through the station's ventilation system. Nari sat against the wall and closed her eyes. She was not sleeping or hiding from fear. She was listening. Her brother had taught her that predators had patterns, had habits. If you understood the pattern, you could predict what they would do next. The scratching sounds moved from one side of the room to the other. Then they stopped. For several minutes there was only silence. Then the sounds started again, but in a different direction. It is mapping the station, Nari whispered to herself, learning the layout. A student near her heard the whisper. What did you say? The creature, Nari said quietly. It is not hunting yet. It is exploring, learning. Where we are and how to reach us. How do you know that? Asked the student. Because that is what I would do. The scratching sounds continued for another hour. Sometimes they were close, sometimes far away. The Nethisian was indeed mapping the station, learning every corridor and room. Finally, the sound stopped completely. Maybe it is gone, whispered a hopeful voice. Maybe it found another way out, said another. Nari opened her eyes and stood up. No, she said. It is finished exploring. Now it starts hunting. As if her words were a signal, the emergency speakers crackled again. But this time it was not Commander Vex High's voice. It was a guard, and he sounded terrified. Security teams 7 and 9 are down, the voice reported. The creatures are moving through level 15. They are. Oh no, they are heading toward the dormitory blocks. Creatures? Asked Quillix. 3, came the answer. 3 Nethisians. The room erupted in fresh panic. 3 killing machines were loose on the station, and they were coming this way. Everyone remain calm, the guard in the room said, but his voice was shaking. The security doors will hold them. A loud crash echoed through the corridors outside, then another. Something was breaking through the security barriers. The doors are not holding, a student said in terror. More crashes, closer now. The Nethisians. We're breaking through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. We need to fight, declared Kethver. I will not die hiding in a corner like prey. With what weapons? Asked Quillix. We are students, not soldiers. Our natural abilities, Kethro replied, have claws and fangs. Others have strength or speed. We can defend ourselves. Several of the larger predator species agreed. They moved toward the exits, ready to fight whatever was coming. Nari watched them prepare for battle. She saw the fear in their eyes despite their brave words. These were students who had never faced real danger. They were used to practice combat and sparring matches, not life or death battles against true predators. You will die, she said quietly. What? Cuthbert turned to look at her. You will die if you fight them directly, Nari repeated. Nethesians are apex predators from a death world. They're stronger, faster, and more experienced than you are. Then what do you suggest, human? Kethver asked with anger. They hide and wait to be eaten? Suggest you think, Nari replied. Direct confrontation is not the only way to fight. Before anyone could respond, the lights went out completely. The emergency lighting failed as well. The room was plunged into total darkness. In the darkness, they heard a new sound. Not scratching or roaring. Something worse. The sound of breathing that was not human or alien. It was the breathing of something that had found its prey. It is in the room, whispered a terrified voice. Students began to scream and run in the darkness. The panic was complete now. Creatures stumbled over each other trying to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Then they heard another sound. The sound of something large hitting the floor. One of the students had been caught. Everyone stay down, Nari said in a calm voice that somehow carried through the chaos. Do not run. Do not make noise. Why should we listen to you? Demanded Kethver's voice from somewhere in the darkness. Because, Nari replied, I am going to kill it. The room fell silent. Even the Nethesian seemed to pause at her words. You. Quillix's voice was full of disbelief. You are going to fight a Nethesian? Not fight, Nari corrected. Hunt. In the darkness, the other students heard something they had never heard before. Nari was moving, but she made no sound at all, no footsteps, no breathing. She had become completely silent. The Nethesian heard it too. It made a confused growling sound, as if it was trying to locate prey that had suddenly vanished. For several minutes, there was only silence. Then they heard something that made every alien in the room feel cold fear. Nari was laughing. Quietly, but with a sound that was somehow more terrifying than the Nethesian's roar. I can see you, she whispered into the darkness. But you cannot see me. The Nethesian roared in response, but the sound was different now. It was not the roar of a confident predator. It was the sound of something that had suddenly realized it was being hunted. Welcome to my world, Nari said softly, where humans are the monsters in the dark. The real hunt was about to begin. In the complete darkness, Nari moved like a ghost. Her bare feet made no sound on the cold metal floor. She had removed her shoes and tied them to her belt. Her breathing was so quiet that even she could barely hear it. The Nethesian was confused. It had been hunting for years across different worlds, killing everything it encountered. But now something was wrong. Its prey had disappeared, and something else was moving in the darkness, something that felt dangerous. Nari had spent the first few minutes learning the room's layout by memory. She knew where every table, chair, and frightened student was located. The Nethesian did not. It was in an unfamiliar place. While she had made this space her territory, the alien students huddled together in terror, trying to stay silent. They could hear the Nethesian moving around the room, searching for them. Its claws clicked against the metal floor as it walked. Its breathing was heavy and hungry, but they could not hear Nari at all. Where are you, little prey? The Nethesian hissed in broken galactic standard. I can smell your fear. Nari was behind it now, moving closer step by step. The Nethesian was large, about 8 feet tall, with gray skin like leather and claws, as long as kitchen knives. Its muscles bulged under its skin. On its home world, nothing could challenge it. But this was not its home world. Nari picked up a small piece of broken metal from the floor. She threw it across the room. Where it hit the wall with a soft ping, the Nethesian spun around and charged toward the sound, roaring as it ran. Its claws scraped against the wall where the metal had hit. Nothing here, it growled in frustration. While it was distracted, Nari moved to a different position. She found what she was looking for, a maintenance panel on the wall. She opened it quietly and felt around inside until her fingers found what she needed. A few seconds later, she threw another piece of metal, this time to the opposite side of the room. Again, the Nethesian charged toward the sound. Again, it found nothing. Coward. Show yourself and die with honor. Nari threw a third piece of metal. The Nethesian chased it, but this time, it moved more slowly. It was starting to understand that something was playing with it. You think you are clever, the Nethesian snarled. Ah! But I will find you. I always find my prey. I know you will, Nari whispered from right behind it. The Nethesian spun around, but Nari was already gone. She had moved away the instant after. Speaking, for the first time in its life, the Nethesian felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. Nari had been studying the creature's movements for 20 minutes now. She knew how fast it was, how it turned, where it looked when it heard sounds. She understood its hunting pattern completely. Now she began to change that pattern. She threw metal pieces faster, from different directions. The Nethesian ran from sound to sound, getting more confused and angry with each empty chase. Its breathing became heavier. Sweat began to drip from its gray skin. Stop running, it screamed. Fight me. But Nari did not fight. She hunted. She had found several useful things in the maintenance panel. Wire that could cut. Small tools that could be weapons. Most importantly, she had found the manual controls for the room's ventilation system. Quietly, she adjusted the airflow. The room became warmer, then cooler, and warmer again. The Nethesian did not understand why the temperature kept changing, but its body was working harder to adjust. What is happening? Kethfer whispered from where the students were. Hiding. The human is hunting it, Quillix replied in amazement. She is using the environment as a weapon. Nari continued her psychological war against the Nethesian. She made small sounds from different directions. She changed the room temperature. She even managed to make some of the emergency lights flicker on and off, creating brief moments of dim light that confused the creature more. The Nethesian was no longer hunting. It was being hunted, and it knew it. This is impossible, it growled. Humans are weak prey animals. We're Nari, corrected from the darkness. We were prey a long time ago. She threw another piece of metal, but this time she did not move away. When the Nethesian charged toward the sound, Nari was waiting. She had made a weapon from the maintenance tools, a sharp piece of metal tied to a length of wire. As the Nethesian ran past her in the darkness, she struck. The creature roared in pain and surprise. Something had cut its leg. It spun around, claws swinging wildly, but hit only empty air. Now you know how it feels, Nari said softly. Wounded by something you cannot see. The Nethesian's leg was bleeding. The cut was not deep, but it was in exactly the right place to make running painful. Nari had studied anatomy in her combat classes. She knew where to hurt without killing. Not yet. She continued her hunt. More small cuts, more confusion, more exhaustion. The Nethesian was still dangerous, but it was no longer confident, was afraid, tired, and wounded. After an hour of this torment, the creature finally stopped in the center of the room. Please, it begged, just kill me quickly. No, Nari replied. Quick death is for honorable enemies. You are a killer of innocence. She made one final adjustment to the room's systems. The emergency lights came on fully, flooding the room with bright light. The alien students saw everything clearly for the first time. The Nethesian stood in the center of the room, bleeding from dozens of small cuts. Its gray skin was covered in sweat. Its claws shook with exhaustion. The creature that had terrified them was now a broken, defeated thing, and Nari stood behind it, holding her improvised weapon. She looked completely calm. Not tired, not frightened. She looked like she'd been enjoying herself. "This is what a human predator looks like," she said to the watching students. "We do not kill with claws, or teeth, or strength. We kill with patience. We kill with intelligence. Kill by making our prey destroy itself." The Nethesian tried to turn around to face her, but its wounded legs would not support it anymore. It fell to the floor. "How?" it whispered.
Oh.
"Did a tiny prey animal defeat me?" "I am not prey," Nari replied. "I am what prey becomes when it learns to hunt." She moved closer to the fallen creature. "My species survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and wars. We walked across entire continents to chase our food until it died of exhaustion. We are persistence hunters. We never stop. We never give up. We never forget." The Nethesian looked up at her with terror in its eyes. "What are you?" human Neri said simply. Then she finished what she had started. When it was over, the room was silent, except for the breathing of shocked alien students. They stared at Nari like they had never seen her before, because they had not. They had seen a small, quiet human girl who they thought was weak. Now they saw something else entirely. "There are two more," Nari said, wiping the blood from her weapon. "I can track them through the ventilation system. You want to hunt them too?" asked Kethfer in a shaky voice. "They are in my territory now," Nari replied. "That makes them my responsibility." She walked toward the air duct that the Nethesian had used to enter the room. The opening was barely large enough for her small human frame, but too small for most alien species. "Wait," called Quillix. "You cannot go alone. It is too dangerous." Nari paused and looked back at the crystal being. "Dangerous for who?" She climbed into the air duct and disappeared into the darkness of the station's ventilation system. Her voice echoed back to them one last time. "Tell the guards to stay out of my way. I am hunting now." The alien students sat in stunned silence, finally understanding what they had missed about humans. They were not weak prey animals from a soft world. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, and they had been mocking one of them for days. In the air ducts above, they could hear Nari moving through the station like a silent shadow. Somewhere else in the station, two more Nethesians were about to learn why Earth was truly called a death world. Not because of what lived there, because of what it had created. 2 hours passed before Nari returned to the dormitory room. She climbed down from the air duct quietly, her clothes torn and dirty, but her eyes calm. The alien students had been waiting in nervous silence, jumping at every sound from the ventilation system above. "It is finished," she said simply. "Both of them," asked Kethfer. "All three," Nari corrected. "The one here, and the two on levels 12 and 15. The room was completely silent. Every alien student stared at her in shock and something that looked like fear. "How?" whispered Quillix. "How did you find them so quickly?" Nari sat down against the wall and began cleaning her improvised weapon. Nethesians are ambush predators. They like to hide in dark spaces and wait for prey to come to them. But the station's ventilation system is not like their home world. Here, there are only a few places large enough for creatures their size to hide." She looked up at the watching faces. "I did not hunt them randomly. I went to each hiding place and forced them to come to me." "Forced them how?" asked a student. "Fire," Nari replied. "I used maintenance tools to create small fires in the air ducts. The smoke and heat drove them out of hiding into areas where I could fight them properly." Kethfer shook his massive head in amazement. "You used the station itself." "As a weapon, humans adapt," Nari said. "We use whatever tools are available. Our ancestors hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. They killed giant predators with rocks and fire. They survived ice ages with nothing but their intelligence." The emergency lights suddenly came back to full power. The security doors unlocked. With a loud click. Through the corridors, they could hear the sound of running footsteps as guards and rescue teams. Spread throughout the station, Commander Vexai's voice came through the speakers. "All clear. The prisoners have been eliminated. Students may return to normal activities." A few minutes later, the commander himself entered the room with a squad of armed guards. He looked around at the body of the dead Nethesian and the group of shaken students. "What happened here?" demanded. All the alien students looked at Nari. She stood up slowly and faced the commander. The Nethesian broke into this room during the lockdown, she reported. I killed it in self-defense. Commander Vexai walked over to examine the body. His yellow eyes studied the dozens of precise cuts and the exhausted expression on the dead creature's face. You did this? He asked Nari. Alone.
Sir.
With what weapons? Nari held up her improvised blade made from maintenance tools and wire. I made this from spare parts. The commander looked from the simple weapon to the dead Nethesian and back to Nari. Impossible. Nethesians are classed in predators. They can kill armed squads of trained soldiers. They can kill squads that fight them directly, Nari agreed. I did not fight it directly. Then how? Nari spent the next 10 minutes explaining her tactics. How she had studied the creature's behavior. How she had used the environment to exhaust and confuse it. How she had made it afraid before making it dead. When she finished, the commander was quiet for a long time. And the other two Nethesians? I finally asked. Dead, Nari said. Their bodies are on levels 12 and 15. Commander Vexai activated his communication device. Security Teams 7 and 9 report to levels 12 and 15. Search for Nethesian bodies. A few minutes later, the reports came back. Both creatures were found dead, killed in ways that showed the same tactical intelligence as the one in the dormitory. Extraordinary, the commander muttered. Then he looked directly at Nari. Human, you will report to my office tomorrow morning. We need to discuss your future at this academy. After the commander and his guards left, the alien students slowly began to talk among themselves. But now they talked about Nari differently. Did you see how calm she was? Whispered one student. She was not afraid at all. She enjoyed it, said another. She enjoyed hunting those creatures. I thought humans were prey animals, said a third. I was wrong. Gethfer walked over to where Nari was sitting. The massive Zentarian looked uncomfortable and embarrassed. Human, he said formally, I owe you an apology. Nari looked up at him. For what? For mocking you? For calling you weak? Or thinking my species was superior to yours? He paused. You saved all our lives tonight. You did not need saving, Nari replied. Could have fought the Nethesian, and probably won. Maybe, Kethfer admitted, but many of us would have died. The way was better, smarter. Quillix approached as well, his crystal body shifting colors with emotion. I have recalculated my assessment of human combat capabilities, he announced. My previous calculations were ... incomplete. How so? Nari asked. We measured human strength, speed, and physical advantages, Quillix explained. We did not measure human intelligence applied to warfare. We did not calculate human patience or psychological tactics. We did not understand that humans fight with their minds first, or students gathered around, asking questions about human hunting methods and combat philosophy. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Nari was the center of attention. For positive reasons, the next morning Nari reported to Commander Vexai's office. The room was large and filled with military decorations from across the galaxy. The commander sat behind a desk made from the shell of some giant creature. Down, human, he said. Nari took the chair across from his desk. It was too large for her, making her look even smaller than usual. I have been in military service for 30 years, the commander began. I have fought against pirates, criminals, and hostile alien species. I have seen warriors from every major galactic civilization. He paused and studied her with his yellow eyes. I've never seen anything like what you did last night. Sir, 3 Nethesians, he continued, creatures that my best soldiers would struggle to defeat in open combat. You killed them using maintenance tools and tactical thinking. The commander stood up and walked to a window that looked out at the stars. Tell me, human, is this normal for your species? Dari thought about the question carefully. Humans are good at adapting to dangerous situations. We survived on a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to hunt things bigger and stronger than us by being smarter than them. I see. The commander turned back to face her. I am promoting you, sir. You are no longer a student in advanced combat theory, he explained. You are now an assistant instructor. You will teach other students about human combat methods." Nari was surprised. "I do not have enough experience to be a teacher. You have more real combat experience than most of my instructors," the commander replied. "And you have something even more valuable. You understand that warfare is not just about strength or speed. It is about thinking." That afternoon, Nari stood in front of her first class as an instructor. The room was full of alien students from different species. Many of them were the same ones who had mocked her just days before. "Today we will learn about persistence hunting," she began. "This is the hunting method that allowed humans to become the dominant species on their world." She looked around the room at the attentive faces. "Persistence hunting is not about being the strongest or the fastest," she continued. "It is about never giving up. It is about outlasting your prey. It is about making them exhaust themselves while you stay patient and calm." Kethfer raised one of his massive claws. "But what if the prey is stronger than the hunter?" Nari smiled. "Then the hunter uses intelligence instead of strength. The hunter studies the prey's weaknesses. The hunter uses the environment as a weapon. The hunter makes the prey defeat itself." "Like you did with the Nethisians," said Quillix. Nari agreed. "The Nethisians were stronger, faster, and more experienced than me, but they were also predictable. They relied on fear and intimidation. When those tactics failed, they had no backup plan." She walked to the center of the room. "Humans always have a backup plan. And a backup plan for the backup plan. We survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless predators by never giving up and always adapting." A new student raised her hand. "Are all humans like this?" Nari thought about her brother Jimin and the other humans serving in the colonial marines across the galaxy. She thought about the human colonists on dangerous worlds, building cities in places where other species would not dare to land. "Yes," she said simply. "We are all like this. Just do not always show it until we have to." The class continued for 2 hours. Nari taught them about human endurance, tactical thinking, and psychological warfare. She explained how humans had learned to hunt creatures 10 times their size using only primitive tools and superior intelligence. When the class ended, the students left with a new understanding of what humans really were. They had learned that the galaxy's newest species was also its most dangerous predator. That evening, Nari called her brother on her communication device. Little sister Jimin smiled when his face appeared on the screen. "I heard about your adventure. The whole human fleet is talking about it." "It was nothing special," Nari replied. "I just did what you taught me." "You did more than that," Jimin said proudly.
No.
"You showed the galaxy what humans are capable of. Now they will think twice before underestimating us." "Good," Nari said. "Maybe now they will treat us as equals instead of weak prey animals." "Equals?" Jimin laughed. "Little sister, after what you did, I think they will treat us as something much more dangerous than equals." Nari looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were spreading across the galaxy. Human ships were exploring new worlds. Human soldiers were protecting trade routes and fighting pirates, and now the galaxy knew what they really were. Not prey animals who got lucky. Apex predators who had been very, very patient. The hunt was just beginning.